Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good morning, viewers. I, Dr. Pooja from CSIO Chandigarh, along with our INYAS chair, Dr. Chandrasekhar Sharma, welcome you to the 11th webinar of INSA-INYAS webinar series Vigyan Setu. COVID-19 times has brought a lot of changes in life of mankind, and several gaps have been identified to be tapped by the scientific community. To end this coronavirus rampage, scientists across the world are working 24/7, wherein life science scientists are working towards understanding this virus and finding diagnostic and treatment solution. Several life science scientists had to stay away from their laboratory during early phase of national lockdown, which has caused a severe loss in their wet lab work in terms of culture, cell lines maintained, and other valued things. Today, to speak on COVID-19 pandemic and life scientist, where do we go from here? We have with us none other than Professor Chandrima Shaha, President INSA. I request our viewers to pose their questions related to the topic onto the YouTube chat box, which we will take with the speaker after the talk. Before we start the webinar today, it is our pleasure to have Dr. Anandita, Associate Professor IISER Kolkata, Co-Chair Global Young Academy, and Founding Chair INYAS to introduce our speaker. Dr. Anandita, please.
Thank you.
Mute. Anita, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, we can hear.
It's an honor to be welcoming and introducing Professor Shaha. As Pooja mentioned, she is currently the president of the Indian National Science Academy, our parent organization. She is also professor of eminence and the former director of the National Institute of Immunology. So she is a person who's been working with immunology for a long time. She is active fellow she graduated.
Anandita, your voice is not coming clear. Somehow it is breaking up.
The University of Kolkata, and where she completed her doctoral research also in 1980 from the Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, which awarded her a PhD from the University of Calcutta. For her postdoctoral work, she was at the University of Kansas Medical Center and then at the Population Council, New York City. After this, she joined NII in New Delhi. 1984 and has been her early 20s. We all know Professor Shaha's accolades. She has won numerous awards and honors, including the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. I'm not going to list it because you can find all of it on her page and on Wikipedia. But what I'm going to mention is what many people don't know, that Professor Shaha used to play cricket, and she has actually been the vice captain of the first women's cricket team of West Bengal. So I think it's a very nice mix we have of a scientist who is not just a scientist, because we often talk about doing science and engaging with nothing but our science. But Professor Shaha has been a scientist all her life, but she has also had other interests. And of course, as the president of the Indian National Science Academy, and before that, the vice president, she has engaged in various activities which bring together science and society and bridge the gap between knowledge production in science and knowledge utilization in society. So it's a great pleasure that she is here as a speaker in this series, which she has helped us initiate and run all of this time. So over to you, Professor Shaha.
Thank you very much, Anandita. Small correction, it's Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Medal of the INSA. And today we are, at a time where uncertainties are many, and we do not know how long this pandemic will continue, and what form it will take, and how much financial loss it has incurred. But this is a war that humanity has to win. In this crisis, who is expected to deliver? Almost all sectors are involved in some way or other, but research involving virus spread, the part that immunity is playing, is genotype involved in severity of infections, how the virus invades the body, and how sort of it kills, is the job of the life scientist. Now, I'm going to address some questions relevant to the pandemic and also look at the ground realities for researchers, their trials and tribulations, and I'm sure that the questions from the audience will also contribute to the discussion. If I can share my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
All right. So, we know that the COVID-19 has really affected all areas. And if you look at this does not cover all the areas, but what is important is that whether it's healthcare, research and development, and other sectors also, everything is leading to so much stress. All the non-functionality or partial functionality of the sectors, mental health has become really a problem. The fear, the insecurity that people have. So in dealing, I'm just today talking about life scientists, and there also what we have to see is how we can help the mental health of students who have an uncertain future. And definite concrete steps have to be taken for this. Now, COVID-19 has been labeled as a black swan event. Now, is COVID-19 really a black swan event? Black swan is a metaphor which was coined when it was believed that there are no black swans. So the arrival of a black swan was considered as a surprising event with catastrophic consequences. So since COVID-19 has actually disabled many things in the world, it has been called a black swan event. But the element in black swan event is the surprise. So let us see if we were actually surprised or we knew it was coming. So it turns out that there have been warnings by epidemiologists about an impending pandemic that is going to come. And if you look at the SARS, which occurred in February 2003, it spread quickly to 26 countries, and the death rate was almost 1 in 10. MERS, the Middle East respiratory virus, which was first reported in Saudi Arabia in September to 2012, it spread to 27 countries, and the death rate that was very high, 1 in 3. The Ebola outbreak in 1976 had a fatality rate of 88%, and 38 million people across the globe have AIDS. So these were all warnings that we had, and we really did not realize that this is going to strike us big. If you listen to a lecture by Bill Gates, a TED talk by Bill Gates, which was given in 2015, he actually said that we have made too much investment in nuclear warheads, and then how to defend ourselves, how nuclear war is going to kill us. But we did not realize that an agent which is millions of times smaller than us, which we can't even see in the eye, is going to cause us so much trouble. So enough investment has not been made in healthcare, in studying the viruses or studying their patterns. And so now all of a sudden this is thrust upon us, and we were not ready. So, but this is also true that we have technology now to go ahead and fight this virus, but it also needs to be upgraded. So with these warnings, COVID-19 is certainly not a black swan event, but we have much to learn. Now, there are technologies where technology can be used to focus data gathering on the warnings that deserve attention. Now, data gathering has to be really organized well, because to even today, if you imagine to correlate data from a hospital patient and so many hospital patients, and then bring it to a point where they are clubbed in groups, their symptoms, their genotype, their response, it is a huge, huge task. So that really needs to be organized. And the predictive tools that we develop should be based on reliable data and be used to forecast possible emergencies like this. Information on our readiness with manpower and the preparedness of the healthcare systems should be available on our fingertips. That data should be available with us so that in case of any emergency, we can respond very quickly. For that, like a fire drill, we should be preparing drills for helping the decision makers to anticipate the consequences and events being flagged to track the trajectories of these events to gauge their significance. This is very important because the drills really help to predict the outcomes. Now with the digital world developing so much, drills can also be made in a digital mode. Now, if we look at the response of life scientists, that has been quite remarkable. If we see December 27, the cases of unusual pneumonia were reported to one Center of Disease Control and Prevention. On January 7, a new type of coronavirus was isolated in China. So a few days, 10 days. And then first PCR test kits came in January 11, but officially China actually informed the world about the genetic sequence of the novel coronavirus on January 12. And all the developments after that of the test kits, the designing of vaccines and drugs were done consequent to this. And this saved many lives because lockdowns were imposed and the tests revealed where the hotspots were. So the technology really helped us to initiate our initial response to this virus. So imagine if 20 years back this happened, the world would just simply stop and many more deaths would occur. So that is one thing that we could do if we take a lesson from that. Now, within a very short time, the life scientists have been able to generate a lot of understanding of the biology of the virus, how the virus multiplies, how it invades, how it manipulates the cellular machinery, how it survives, and eventually how it kills. Virologists, cell biologists, biochemists, mathematicians have collaborated to generate beautiful data. Now, it is a truly interdisciplinary effort that is leading the research on coronavirus. So the life scientists have been busy, but I will say that some of them could not go due to the closure of the labs, etc. Now, I wanted to just show I couldn't resist myself of showing some beautiful data. That we know that the coronavirus binds to the human cells through the ACE2 receptor, which is expressed on the cell surface in humans. So the ACE2 here is a structural biologist's view of the ACE2 receptor. And this is the ACE2 receptor binding domain of the coronavirus. This red string that you are seeing is the receptor binding motif of the coronavirus receptor binding domain. And through this motif, it binds to the ACE2 receptor. So it has been worked out from residue to residue, which has helped in designing the vaccine with antigenic epitopes and also understanding what drugs could interfere in the binding itself. This was a Nature paper that came out in May. And what is more interesting is that when the spike protein actually tries to bind to the human cell surface, we have got enemies within, which are the proteases. There are two proteases, TMPRSS2 and CatBL, which actually cleaves a portion of the spike protein, making it competent to bind to the ACE2 receptor protein. So this has also been worked out. So inhibitors to these proteases, and also inhibitors inhibitors which can bind and block the ACE2 receptor protein has been designed. So it'll take time for it to come to the field, but many papers have come. There are about 24,000 papers on different aspects of SARS-CoV-2. So it is difficult to sift through there. But these are very, very elegant observations that we have seen. And then we have actually seen the virus through a scanning electron micrograph. You can see these are the microvilli of the cells, and the viruses are coming out. And here is a transmission electron micrograph, which shows the structure of the coronavirus. So who made the contributions? The students, the postdocs, the mid-career scientists, the senior scientists, and even entrepreneurs have pitched in. So these are all, they all belong to the life science stream. Now, in the workforce has two, we can actually see there are two kinds of people here. There were people who had no opportunity to work. Their institutes, scientific institutes or universities closed. So they had to struggle because their experiments were terminated. The cell lines had to be frozen. Stocks had to be made. And difficult decisions had to be taken about animals, because keeping so much animals, and nobody was sure how long this was going to be. Chemicals and drugs were wasted. Resources of new reagents stopped, and also instrument facilities got disrupted. The data that were wasted has to be started once again. And uncertainty is the main thing here. And that uncertainty is resulting in increased anxiety in a population of students. Now, if we look at another group of people who had the opportunity to work, they were isolating and growing the SARS virus, sequencing the genome of the virus, modeling the spread of the disease, estimating healthcare resources. Diagnostic testing was designed, diagnostic tests were made available, and technological innovations, developing test kits, new materials for PPE, low-cost ventilators, etc., were all being done by a community of people. But these guys had the opportunity to work. But what is important to look here also, that many of them who were doing this came away from their own work and contributed to this emergency, to this world emergency that we saw. So there are these two distinct group of people, and both, I think, need support. While the ones that had no opportunity to work, some of them went back to their native places. There was no internet connection there. They could not reach any resources on literature, etc. Then there were these people who have shifted from their own work to help the nation in this time of crisis. So they also need to be supported. So there were also positive side of this, that there are some people use this time to write manuscripts, to analyze data, and they caught up on literature, which is sometimes not possible when you're very busy. It takes takes a long time, and then planning on further experiments. And they took part in discussions on online platforms, having journal clubs and webinars. So the thought process was more. Then writing of grant proposal without everyday lab activities, and some of them explored newer career paths, like, for example, science writing, science communication, science illustration. So these were some of the positive things that came out. Now, this is a survey which I got from the EMBL site. I do not have any survey of made in our country. Surveys are difficult to make, and one has to assign somebody to do that. But this gives a general picture, which is about that this was done in and around Europe. So 77% of life science institutes actually shut down, and 57% lost up to 6 months of work. 66% used extra time for career development. 18% took part in COVID-19 related research, which I think is a bit higher than what is projected here. And 26, this is one odd survey, so I think this must be more, this more than 18%. Then 26% of investigators feared that there will be an increase in cost due to loss of work, which is true. 30% attended virtual conferences. That I think figure is also a bit more, because many people attended virtual conferences, webinars, and attended courses. So this is a general, this is the reflection of the European situation, but I think we are close by to this, although I do not have any data from our country. Now, there is a situation here where after completing PhD programs, many students go for postdoctoral fellowships. Now, many of them are grounded even if they have offer, they cannot go. The laboratories are not accepting them right now in this kind of situation. So there is a population of highly trained manpower which have just come out of their doctoral studies. Now, according to the All India Survey on Higher Education conducted by the Ministry of Human Resource Development last year, that is last year, that is in 2018, 40,813 students actually were awarded PhD. So a similar amount of people in this year, in this 2020 was supposed to be getting PhD. So now they are delayed, but there is also these people who are almost about to finish their thesis, or some of them have actually finished their thesis and have no jobs. And many who had been abroad, were pursuing research programs abroad, have come back, and they are also without jobs. So we actually have this very well-trained manpower, quite a significant number that we really need to support. So that in turn will help us to fight the COVID-19. Now, in order to deal with the situation, the government must announce a package to help the young scientific community financially, because many places fellowships have stopped, or they do not have jobs, or they're just out of the fellowship. So they are looking around for what to do, how to support themselves. Then extend the dates of the thesis submission. I do not think 6 months is enough here. 1 year is required, because you've already lost about 5 months of work. And when you have to initiate and start and under stringent conditions, then you would certainly require more time. In addition to this, the government must fast track filling up of scientist posts vacant in many institutions. This is very important. Now, regarding finances, I think the financial package should come. If you look at IIT Madras, they have started a crowdfunding effort to help their colleagues, which is, I think, a very good effort, but I think nothing like a government funding which provides equally help to everyone. Now, in India's fight against the COVID-19, the research scholars have been heroes, really, because I have taken only a few institutes, but I'm sure there are more. And those that did not get the opportunity could not get the opportunity because the institutes were not equipped to work in with an infection agent like the COVID-19, like the SARS-CoV-2. So CCMB has 58 research scholars volunteering in a testing facility. Again, they have left their own work and are coming out to help the community. They have provided trainings for handling samples to other scholars, to doctors, to technicians. They have devised special RNA extraction techniques, and that it was designed by scholars only. The Bangalore cluster have student volunteers who are also doing the testing. At IGIB, students are looking at the virus genetic data and making test kits. So these are few examples. And again, in Pune, the ICER has been working on designing and repurposing of drugs to target the novel coronavirus spike protein. So at IISc Bangalore, material scientists and their PhD students have actually been working on a virucidal mask. And so, but these again has their own processes, have to be patented and then given to industry to make it. So I think in India's fight against COVID-19, the research scholars have really contributed for those who had access to work, for those who did not have access to work are in need of support. Both of them need support, I think, both the groups. Now there is an issue of return to work. Now we have a sort of what we called a new normal, where the pandemic has created workplace conditions, which is a source of anxiety and tension, because we are, I mean, all said and done, we have fear for our lives, and infection risks are greatest in some setup. So we have to be cautious, and so that is always bearing in the mind of people, and that is causing a lot of anxiety. Now, distress, I mean, I have talked about only the laboratory life, but looking at people's personal lives, if you see the children's education, their own home finances, everything is sort of disrupted. So distress may also result from this personal financial pressure, social isolation, fear of infection, and the threat of job loss. So returning to this uncertain conditions of environment, it's an additional stressor. So every institute, every university, the employers have to be sympathetic to people who are returning to work and give them enough support to carry on. And in the end, it is them who will actually benefit. Now, this COVID-19 pandemic will have a substantial long-lasting effect on mid-career scientists in terms of loss of valuable time, resources, when they're trying to sort of set themselves up. Even if they've set themselves up, their work progress is necessary. And the disruption of the experiments and the scholars going home has really affected them. Now, why I'm saying this is because, see, the people working in the STEM field are affected in this. Now, if they start going away, scientists start going away from the STEM field because of some of the extraneous reasons, then we will lose valuable manpower with high degree of qualification and ability to solve problems to this calamity that we are facing. And in future, we will not be able to face with so much efficiency. So we really need to keep the STEM scientists, or other words, people who are working in the STEM field, in business. So this is what I sort of wanted to say. And I would now like to take questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor Shaha, for giving a wider perspective about COVID-19 and response of life scientists. Also, I really appreciate your views you put forward about the concerns of the scientists arising due to this pandemic. So let's take a few questions. Our first question to you, Professor, is that will this pandemic reduce the interest in the field of biological research that are not directly connected to the current situation?
Well, the first impulse of people, I think, is to try to help. So, so scientists would try to whatever expertise they have to put it in this emergency. That will be there. So their own fields, which they have left and come and are addressing this problem, this is such a situation that we did not know what would happen. So eventually, I think they will go back, maybe. But if the situation demands, then I'm sure that there will be some kind of concentration in the field of the SARS-CoV-2 research. Also, as we know that there is a very much more investments that are being made in the research field encircling the COVID-19 situation by all the government funding agencies. So there will be a concentration of people going towards that, because without support, scientists cannot work, and much support will come to those fields. But it is also not true that other fields will not get support, because those diseases, those conditions are important for us. And I'm sure that government is not so myopic as to stop funding in those areas. So I think for the time being, we can see a concentration in the research on COVID-19, but eventually we will, plateau out in some time.
Right, Professor Saha. In your talk, you mentioned like PhD students, scholars, they are really affected from this situation. Like many students who were about to finish their thesis or at the verge of finishing thesis. So there is a question related to them. Like considering the year-long crisis and loss of time, many PhD students were forced to stay home. Even today, labs are not allowed to function with 100% student capacity. So how would these students finish their degree? Will they have to spend extra years to recover from this loss? Or they should be allowed to graduate with reduced academic demands like number of first author research articles? What is your thought and recommendation upon this?
I am not in favor of reducing the rigor that there is associated with PhD, but this is a very, very unusual situation. And because we know as scientists that it takes, for at least life scientists, it takes almost a year to get a paper through, because the revisions, re-revisions, etc. So for a student to spend one more year in addition to whatever he lost, that is, suppose it's one more year, so it's 2 years extra. So we all have to see how to tackle this issue. The essentially, a few years back, it was not that they had to submit papers to get the thesis through, but now it has been done to put some kind of a rigor in the system. So to take it off, I would say it will be short-sighted, but then we have to find a midway in which a student can also submit his or her thesis by maybe submission of a paper, and subject to something. So this is something that we have to work out. This was, as I'm saying, this is such an unexpected situation that we don't even know that students who are not able to come now will be able to come in next 3 months or not. So accordingly, one has to, and it is the most unlucky for those students to have been at this time.
Right. So moving to the next question, ma'am. The question is related to like this pandemic has seen great research work from many scientists. However, we have also seen a huge number of people getting involved in Me Too type research, diverting away their own field and expertise. Can you comment on this aspect?
As I said, that people will move to some areas which has funding. So right now the support is quite a bit for this area, this particular area. So people will concentrate on that. But I wouldn't I wouldn't call it a Me Too type of research, because, for example, somebody who's working in a totally distant area will not be able to do something for the SARS-CoV-2. But for people, suppose, who are working in infectious diseases, suppose tuberculosis, malaria, could use their systems to address some of the questions, which sometimes is very good, because you have a totally different outlook of a system, and you are now going to use it for another system, which becomes which is actually good. I think in science that mixing is very good. So sorry. So we have to look at that with not that kind of a outlook that it's a kind of a Me Too research. But I think, as I said, in some times we'll find it plateauing, but always wherever support is, people will go.
Thanks, Professor. So our next question is, see, in the current situation, we hear that society has to listen to the science. What steps do you think that are essential to make society listen to the science even after this pandemic? How can science academies play a role here?
Well, when I said that society should listen to science, I think one of the effects of the COVID-19 has been, whether it is out of fear or out of interest, that a lot of people have taken interest in science itself without actually knowing, maybe. People are speaking about vaccines, immunity, flattening of the curve, and the survival of the virus. So I've heard lay people talking about this. So in a way, it has percolated into the society that this is an event where scientists were very important and they were working on these aspects. Healthcare workers were very important because they were at the forefront of fighting. So I think the society has already started listening. So we have to fan that a bit, because for future emergencies, or for example, we are right now blinded by this pandemic, but round the corner we have the climate crisis which is coming. So society has to listen to scientists, and that the academies, and not only academies, scientists wherever they are, can speak to people. The academies through their programs can approach lay people, and talk about the issues in the pandemic, issues which can threaten us in the future. So I think the academies have a very important role to play here. And also, as you have done once, the INIAS has done once, when they have actually translated the coronavirus linked literature into local languages. I think that is another way to do it. And then to percolate into a little interior of India in the rural sectors through the local chapters, to teach people that what it means. Because vaccines, for example, I think there are a lot of acceptance of vaccines now, which people did not know about vaccines. So I think it has already started, and we have to help the society to get more and more people thinking about science. And I don't think only scientists will have to do science. There are people who are interested in literature. There are people who are interested in art. So those people, they can do their own, but they have to appreciate science. So we need to, you can see there are artists who are coming out with their own thoughts about this pandemic. There are writers who are writing about this pandemic. So I think it's a thing that we need to fan a bit more.
Yeah, thanks. So our next question is we used to hear serve the nation. So scientists should only worry about the science. But do you believe in the monetary incentives? Do you think we are not paid well for what is expected from us? In industry, for example, for each job is assigned, there is a payment linked. For academicians, that system doesn't exist. Why scientists who are expected to play such an important role are not paid up to the mark and are still expected to serve? Shouldn't the policymakers consider these aspects as well? What is your opinion on the performance-based incentives in Indian science?
We should never, there is a platform now where academicians and industry are interacting. But we should never compare ourselves to the industry, just because of the reason is that industry is looking at profit. And academicians have their own freedom. They are not looking at profit. And whatever they discover, the tangible effects of that discovery takes time. And that we know. And so it goes to the industry, and industry can apply. So, and the amount of money that you're talking about, whether we are well paid or lowly paid or highly paid, is related to one's need. So if you talk about, see, for example, you look at teachers. Teachers who are building up the citizens of India, are they well paid? So this is a very controversial issue as to how it should be. The government has tried. They have made some monetary incentives. But I think the academic freedom is something that we enjoy, and that is a great thing. Whether that can be linked to money, I doubt. I'm from the little traditional school, so I would not think so.
Right, ma'am. So we move with our next question. Like in this COVID-19 times, we have learned new ways to work. Maybe it is at academic level or research level. So this pandemic has taught us to come out of our comfort zone. So do you think even if a scientist is academically said to be independent, he or she needs to technological upgradation? Do you think such training should be provided by a relevant organization?
See, about the technological upgradation, um, we do research in a time, we are doing research in a time when technology is advancing by leaps and bounds. And people need to update themselves on the upcoming technology or the technology that has already evolved in comparison to when they were doing their PhD or graduate studies. So I think that it is up to a particular person to find ways to get himself or herself updated on the technological issues. But as organizations giving trainings, I don't know if there are such enterprises who give trainings on particular technology that has its use. The important thing is to understand the concept of that technology and where you can apply that technology in your research. That is the important thing to understand. And then upgradation to technology, I think, is very important because the technology is going by leaps and bounds. I can tell by itself because when I started my research work and where science has gone is, it's incredible. It's mind-boggling. I don't think you can keep up so fast unless you do this regularly.
Thanks, Professor Saha. So, next question from our side is that most of the sectors they have been opened in this unlockdown now, or starting to open, and slowly we are going towards the normalcy. What would be the recommendation or advice from INSA about the reopening of the higher educational institute or research activities?
It will be difficult for me to comment on this because I do not think I have enough information on, see, we are seeing the COVID-19 cases are increasing and there is not a lower plateau or flattening of the curve like that in everywhere. So situation is still not conducive to opening of the scientific institutes in totality or even universities, because that would aid in spread. But we cannot also indefinitely keep them under the keep them from opening. So I think one of the necessary things is to find ways to follow strict measures of isolation, follow measures of the examination hall itself is a place where people can get infected. So, and I think people don't know what to do in when they're opening the large campuses and all. But with precautions, for example, in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were not so sure about the mask, but now we definitely know that this is a way to prevent yourself spreading the virus or somebody else giving it to you. So, so these there are many precautions that one can take, but when it becomes a large crowd, it becomes difficult to manage. So right at the moment, looking at the situation of the increasing cases, I would say we can open very cautiously all the enterprises that are dealing with life sciences or any other, for that matter, any other institutes or colleges.
Right, ma'am. So we will take now viewers' question. We have received a lot of questions. Going by the first question from Anandita itself. So Anandita, question is, what role have science academies played in India and abroad during the pandemic, and what more could we do?
Yeah. So the science academy, for example, what we did in INSA was to open a page for COVID-19, put all the advisories of the government together, and then initiate the webinar series. And our fellows are writing in newspapers and talking to people, and INYAS themselves have done a lot of work on this. So these are the kind of work that academies are doing. And abroad, what I have seen that they have come out with statements on what needs to be done and advise the government of what are the measures can be taken, when lockdown can be lifted, when lockdown can be imposed. So this kind of advices they have given to the government. So we have actually in INSA, we have signed we have given joint statements with like the G20 academies, the Commonwealth Academy, and the inter-academy partnership. We have given joint statements on that to build a global opinion on the pandemic. So the academies have been active. Since they do not have laboratories, they could not contribute to the of course the testing and what the wet institutes could do. And so I would say that the academies have done their bit. I'm sure we could have done more if we, always there is an option of doing more, but I think we have done well. And the foreign academies that you are asking about, they have also been regularly circulating their statements and helping people to understand what the pandemic is about.
Something in similar line, Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee is asking, can INSA play a role in dissemination of the correct information at a time when a lot of disinformation and contradicting information keeps polluting the social media?
I think, it is difficult to go to individual social media and find out what kind of, misinformation is going. Where we can, we have actually through our website, we have shown what is being done now and what kind of advisories the government is giving. And you have other good sites also, like we have linked to one, it's Vigyan, where any misinformation is being tackled. So in general, this is being attempted by others as well as the academies. And the Bangalore Academy, the NASI, they are also attempting to deal with the misinformation. But the problem is the misinformation is not only in this sector. If you look at the social media, which is so vibrant, but it has a lot of misinformation on many things. So we have to look at it in this way and encourage people to look at sites like I mentioned, COVIDGAN or other government sites, or in sites of the institutes, various institutes. They have also put up a lot of information, and look at the sites of the academies as well.
Right, ma'am. So next question is from Prateek Pandya. He's asking how we can improve collaboration in the times of COVID.
Well, it depends whether your collaboration is, within the country or outside the country. But at this point of time, wherever you are, you have to collaborate through the online efforts. I mean, you have a platform, online platform on which you can speak to people. Normally, what INSA would do would send scientists to other countries to set up collaborations. We cannot do that now. But I think it is entirely possible to speak to as many people as you can. There's been an enormous amount of interaction between the scientists from abroad and scientists from here, and also between scientists within the country. Because as I said, this is an interdisciplinary effort to fight the pandemic. So there has been many efforts to collaborate with each other. And this is a very good sign.
Professor, we have next question from Sanjeev Agrawal. He is asking, what are the science-based solutions for this pandemic, including linkage with the air pollution?
Science-based solution to the pandemic is what we are doing right now. We are looking at, as I mentioned in my talk, that obtaining the patient data and correlating it to genotype, to the, I mean, not exactly with the climate. It has not been, we were so busy looking at the disease itself that we have not related it to the climate as yet. But the data that is coming up, it is the scientific way to analyze the data. And we have a lot of analysis at the level of how the virus invades, how it affects your lungs, and how it actually kills you. So we have a lot of data on that. And the data from the patients is also very important to get it and analyze it in a way that we understand that what is it exactly that some people respond. Some people have lesser degree of disease, some people have the higher degree of disease, and some people are cured faster than others. So these questions we have not answered. So these require a lot of analysis of the data. The disease is only, few months old in a way, and it takes a long time to understand all these. To bring scientific solutions, it takes a long time. So I'm sure in the near future, as we go along, we will generate more and more information on a scientific solution to this pandemic.
Right, ma'am. In your presentation, you mentioned the challenges we faced and opportunities. So the question is from Ranjit Kumar in this direction. Like, how can we convert this pandemic opportunity of preparedness to fight against other pandemic outbreaks in the future? Do you have any plan as you are head of one of the most prestigious scientific body of India?
Yes, see, once we are able to tackle this particular pandemic, we will have tools to predict that what can be future pandemics, and mostly it will be the viral diseases that will really be in pandemic forms. So understanding the different viruses, there are many kinds of viruses. So understanding the viruses and the mode of spread, and if there is a mode of spread, we know how to prevent it. So these things have to be worked out. And I think that once we go along and do this, the information from this pandemic will help us to study other viruses and other threats that we have, and take us to a place where we are equipped to sort of predict that what we can have, and that will surely help us to understand the future pandemic and how far it can go. As I said, that we should have on our fingertips our machinery. Now, in a war, you see, in a war, we know how many soldiers we have, we know how many tanks we have. So in this, we should also have on our fingertips that how many beds, how many hospitals we have, how many beds we have, how many health workers we have. These all information we should have, and that is a very important component of fighting a pandemic. That is, I think, what is the necessity of the day.
And we have next question from Ashish Mathur. He's asking, one major problem in India is reverse brain drain, as many scientists coming back from foreign countries. How are we prepared to tackle this issue, especially in the post-COVID-19 situation?
Yes, I actually mentioned this, that there are a lot of trained manpower that we have now in the country that do not have employment. And perhaps the government can provide a sort of support to these people and use them to fight this pandemic. And this reverse brain drain, as you are indicating, means people coming back from abroad. But you have to remember that these people are very qualified and have very good skills. And we should be able, as a nation, to use these skills to address this emergency situation. And there has to be substantial involvement has to be made. You see, the reason why we are in this kind of a soup is because we do not make enough investments early to understand how we can have the pandemics. So if we spend that money there, we would not lose so much money now. So we can use this kind of manpower to help us. At which way, the government has to decide which way. We can always provide suggestions. Yes.
Yes. Right, Professor Shah. I think this COVID will have taught us a lot to get prepared for such future things, because we could find out the gaps where these are. And now, as you know, that among various vaccine candidates, Russian vaccine is one of the which is being talked about a lot. So one of our viewer, Girija, is asking, can you please explain about the vaccine for corona by Russia?
About the vaccine itself. You see, the vaccine, there are various vaccines. There are nucleic acids have been used to make vaccines. Then, the proteins, the spike protein has been used for making vaccines. So there are multiple vaccines that are in the field. But in reality, a vaccine really takes a long time because we have to determine not only that if you inject for a vaccine, you can get antibodies. But the thing is whether the antibody is functional and whether it actually prevents the virus from binding to your S2 receptors is very difficult to determine in a very short time. So it's going to take a long time to understand that whether your vaccine, although in kind of a situation like this COVID-19, the companies have tried to devise methods by which they can address these issues. And foremost important thing is whether you are you are not showing any side effects or not. So in the phase 2 and part of phase 3, they will see this. And so that is what is very necessary to have. So mostly, the protein vaccines or even the vaccines that use virus, heat-killed virus or killed virus for that matter, they also need to show whether there are side effects or not. There is some lesson with the SARS-CoV, the first virus that we had. There's some lessons from there we can get. So with all these there are many vaccines that are being tried. Which one is going to be successful? It depends on its functionality. So that is the most important thing. And along with functionality, the lack of side effects is the most important thing.
Yes, agree, Professor. So our next question regarding the student and the experimental research, although you have explained in your presentation, but Devasita Bose is asking, how can the experimental research recover its current vigor in the current pandemic situation?
Well, I think the experimental research with the virus is really vibrant today. And if you are talking about experimental research with other pathogens, with the non-communicable diseases, then that figure for a while, I think, is going to be a little low. But see, those are very important things for us. Tuberculosis will not go away. Malaria will not go away. Diabetes will not go away. So all these things we need to work. And so we have to figure out ways to bring back that vibrancy in that system of research with the non-communicable diseases and some of the other communicable diseases other than this particular virus. So that is a situation that we have to evolve ourselves. And if you ask me how to do that, it is very difficult to say, because once the institutes open, the universities open, the students come back, we have to address a very complex set of problems, including the psychological ones. So, what are the restrictions that have changed of importing our materials? What are the restrictions that have changed to do research? So all these have to be addressed.
Right, Professor Saha. Next question is from the student side, from Arun. Can you comment about the students whose study classes have been affected in this period?
Excuse me, whose?
Can you comment about the students' classes, the academic session for the students,
classes
which got affected in this pandemic?
Well, I thought that there are online classes going on. So if, I mean, that's the way to address it. Although, when you are not seeing the teacher and how good it is, I don't know. I have not taken online classes, but I think online classes right now is the only way, or you have to have very big halls with, people sitting at necessary physical distances, wearing masks, and the teacher is teaching. That also can happen. But if for that you need really big halls, or have to have classes in shifts, so that X number of people attend the first shift and the second attend the second shift. It's all the more work for the teacher. But I think that is one way where we can start the classes.
Professor Saha, I think our all webinars have this question, and I think as a common man, everybody is so interested about knowing this question. So this is again a question from Anil Chaudhary. He is asking, by which time vaccine will be available for the common people? Is Indian scientists I mean, are they going to give the precious gift to the common people?
It'll take time. If you ask me, it'll take time. There is, we should not rush with the vaccine because, it may boomerang. So we have to be a little more patient, and to say a timeline now, it's almost impossible because we do not have the complete data on which how far the different companies have gone. I don't want to name anyone, but how far the companies have gone in taking the vaccine out, because without that data, it is impossible to say when it is going to come. And these data are not made available to the public, for specific reasons.
Right, ma'am. So we will now take last question. The question is from Harsha. Would you like to throw light on nasal COVID-19 showing promising results in mice?
Excuse me, what COVID-19?
Nasal COVID-19 showing promising results in mice. I'm not sure whether it is correctly asked or not.
That means COVID-19 going through the nasal route, or
yes.
I think that
Probably.
What it is. So some experiments have been done with vaccines in that they look promising, but mice and humans are totally, we are required to test it in two subhuman species, but mice may be quite different. Mice system may be quite different because immunologically mice, although have many similarities, but it is different from humans. So I will not be able to extrapolate the mice studies to humans.
Right, ma'am. So we received a lot of questions, but due to time constraint, we have to end here. So thank you very much for such an insightful session, bringing out all the problems faced by the various researchers and projecting some opportunities during this period. So at the end, on behalf of INYAS colleagues and on my own behalf, I wish to thank Professor Chandrima Shaha for sparing time to share her views in such a candid manner. I would like to inform our viewers that you can find this discussion and further updates on our official YouTube channel. For further information, our next talk will be on September 19 at 11 a.m. Dr. Somak Rai Chaudhary, Director, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, will be our speaker. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.